Gacha game adaptations for anime were a mistake, and you should never trust anything that says Media Mix Project. Likewise, you should never trust a girl telling you she loves hearing you play the piano. Because that didn't end well. Meet Takt, Destiny, and Girl Subaru. They have absolutely no personality, and every conversation is filled with whatever inane exposition is needed to tell you what they're doing in that episode. Combine that with the fact that this show is basically more or less episodic, with the only real goal being to go to New York, and you get the epitome of, we need to sell a product that no one gives a shit about, so make the animation pretty. And so they did. The issue is that pretty animation doesn't make up for the fact that the show lacks any and all emotion in both the story department, as the enemies are literal mindless monsters that only exist to die in flashy animation, and the character sense, as they somehow thought it'd be a good idea to turn this
ここでタクトがお風呂入ってる間に
into this.
アンナにもその名前で呼ばれましたが、私の名前は運命です、マエストロ。
Literally stripping away anything that made the character fun, because fuck you, that's why. The story itself also doesn't make much sense either, as they only have their one singular goal as said, but they don't seem to be in a rush to complete it. They fuck around in almost every place they visit, and when they meet this horribly written, third-rate villain guy who is the head of the place they're trying to go to in New York, they deny his help because, reasons? The character himself is what you'd expect from your average SAO villain with the way he acts and speaks, but he isn't actually evil whatsoever, so there's no real reason for them to not accept his help other than the poor writing. They're going to New York to have Destiny examined and see how long she has to live, and or if they can revive Kazette, whose body she took over, but the people they're going to see in New York are Girl Subaru's relatives, who are a part of the same organization that this guy is the head of. It's very trite, and it's obvious the story was an afterthought in this show, especially when they do something as stupid as play music outside when, you know, the aliens hate music. But that leaves its only selling points being the music, characters, and animation. Outside of the classical music pieces, the rest of the OST is rather bland, and I found it very amusing that the top composer in this universe was the main character's dad, a Japanese guy, because everyone knows that most American Hollywood music / OSTs suck and sound like generic movie trailer music. Oh wait, Japanese OSTs do that too sometimes. The characters, as said, are all rather bland mouthpieces just to exposit the story, but there are times where they could have been interesting, like in this scene here. Walkure. Wagner ka. Kirai janai. Oh yeah, you blush, you dirty girl. What? But that would have made it good, so the show didn't actually do that, and instead had it be a rather bland interaction to hint that, hey, you can summon her in the gacha game. It reeks of something that's aim is to make money and not actually tell a competent story with likable characters. But at least the animation looks The combat and animation looks pretty in short bursts, like in the first fight in episode 1, but the longer fight scenes always feel extremely disconnected, like there's no flow to it whatsoever, and it's just vaguely strung along by jerky camera angles and quick cuts, alongside a complete lack of impact. Every time there would be an impact, to give it that extra oomph that the combat needs, it either cuts away or it very clearly lacks it. In episode 3 specifically, it also didn't help it that the MC is supposed to be furious, but his voice acting and mannerisms show it poorly, in contrast to what the animation shows. Even for a quiet rage a la Gohan vs. Cell, it is lackluster, and it instead looks like he's pissy after realizing there was no toilet paper after he just took a shit. Furthermore, in episode 4, Destiny is hitting the monsters with her sword, but it feels like she's hitting them with a dainty little fork because of the lack of impact, and the classical music that plays in the background just blares really loudly with no particular direction, like linking it to the combat movement and hit connections. It doesn't flow with the fight whatsoever, and they don't make an effort effort to try and make the fights flow well in general, as they always just move from one animation cut to the other, where they all look decent to pretty, but they lack direction to link them all together and make for a comprehensive fight scene. And there's no emotion behind any of these fights either because of the bland characters and enemies, so everything ultimately just falls flat, which is extremely unfortunate because this kind of animation would have been killer in an actual good show, like something like Chainsaw Man. It's a complete undermine to the viewer's intelligence when they go, they'll think it's good and they'll play our gotcha game if we just make it look pretty, which I'll totally play if it comes from with wife me up Cosette who take care of me like the shut-in-neat that I am. For a project that's a joint stint between Mappa and Madhouse, I'm not surprised it ended up being lackluster, as Mappa just shits productions out haphazardly, and Madhouse hasn't made a good show in 3 years. To be fair to Mappa though, and to give Chainsaw Man's anime adaptation some semblance of hope, most of Madhouse's episodes actually seem to be the ones that are worse off. As to my understanding, the two studios alternate between each episode, meaning Madhouse covers the odd number episodes, i.e. 1, 3, 5, 7, and so on, and Mappa the even numbered episodes. And a lot of the odd numbered episodes, in terms of animation anyway, are not the greatest. The later episodes do try to do more character-focused episodes, but it just kind of falls flat on its face. Ultimately, it's one of the worst anime airing this season, and it doesn't even take you more than 2 episodes to figure that out. Which is why you should check out this video so that you can check out some of the best ones.